This video is being live streamed. Yes. Hello, everyone. Oh my God. It is anybody who's watching on YouTube right now. Hello, hello, hello. It has been what's the
In a
line?
minute,
It's been 84 years since we last did this.
but we were looking good for 84 years.
Yes. My name, as always, is Brian M. Davis. I'm your friendly neighborhood co-host. Next to me, or rather next to me in cyberspace or Zoom cyberspace, what have you, is my other neighborhood friendly co-host, Hayden Lummis. I say
I love
neighborhood
that you said friendly neighborhood because look at what shirt I'm
because
wearing, if you can see.
yes, yes, I saw that before. It was like, you know what? A little Spider-Man reference. Uh, and speaking of Spider-Man and vacations and whatnot, last time we talked was back in June-ish, I think.
I think
Either
so, yeah.
I believe either June or sometime in early June or sometime to that effect.
Yeah.
Uh, when we last left off, some
There were
stuff
some strikes
happened.
in place.
Some strikes were, I mean, one strike was in place. Another one was about to happen. So, yeah, before we talk about that, Hayden, how'd you spend your summer vacation or
Oh, I
vacation?
spent summer vacation. Oh, it was all right, well, was in a relationship, non-relationship now. Some, like almost like kind of like a summer thing in a way. While Brian is off doing something else. Oh no, he's back. Never mind.
Never mind. I heard my father's phone, so I'm just like, so I was like, yeah, you had an interesting summer vacation. Me, on the other hand, I went back to school. I went back to acting school, mind you. I went to, since I live in New York City, there is a plethora of locations to take acting classes or just to retake acting classes and whatnot. I went to one of the best decisions I ever had to go to is the Terry Knickerbocker Studio in Brooklyn, New York. If you ever go to there, especially if you live in New York City, and just happen to be someone who wants to learn about acting again or someone who wants to relearn their acting craft again, go to the Knickerbocker Studio. It is amazing to do there, amazing to go there. I was taught by the man himself a few times. I was also taught by a great teacher named Celestine. Shout out to both of them. You know, it's basically I did all that for about like 6 weeks, and then during that time, I was also in a production of Midsummer Night's Dream. I played who the hell did I play? It's been a while since I played the king or
King,
governor.
King, the human king, not King Oberon.
Yes,
If I remember you
Theseus.
saying correctly.
No, no, no. I
Theseus,
played.
that's who it was.
Yes, I played the king. I played King Theseus, or Lord Theseus, depending on how you see the character. We had this idea of it being kind of like in a club scene, so I was more or less like a club owner, Theseus. So it's kind of hilarious to watch me kind of like coming on stage with like not really like club type of clothing, but just like bright clothing, all that stuff, and it was fun to do that for like 4 weeks, just 4 performances, 4 weeks. That was just fun to do that once a night of the year, I mean, once a night of the week, and then continue on doing that. But yeah, as we mentioned earlier before, one of the reasons why we didn't do this show over the summer because of our summer stuff, but also it was out of solidarity between the fact that SAG after was on strike along with the WGA.
And yeah,
So and now as someone who was only following through some of like the byline stuff and learning through most of like strike captains and stuff like that, mostly on Twitter, Hayden, though, he's probably like the one who knows about what's going on. So, Hayden, I bring it over to you. What the hell happened with the strike or strike?
first I'm gonna say, first I'm gonna say I kind of got my some similar information, just kind of following people who were like strike
Yeah,
captains or who were there and participating, stuff like that. And well, first off, as we know, WGA, they ended their strike a little while back, got a very, very great deal. SAG-AFTRA, on the other hand, they have reached a tentative deal that is not as good. There are
yeah,
some good things, but there's also some bad things in it. And a friendly reminder, if you're negotiating something and it involves contracts, make sure you read that contract thoroughly, because any excuse for someone to use a loophole, take advantage of you in a contract, they will find it, especially big companies.
Yeah,
And that is one of the things that is a problem with this contract, because one of the um like big issues here was AI. And the language in that contract leaves it up to it has some loopholes in it for companies to take advantage of. And the responses to that pushback on the AI issue is odd to me, because a lot of that pushback has come to basically it's been like, well, hey, look, it's not the best deal, but it's a deal. We got to take a deal we can get. But at the same time, it also seems to undermine the fact that with AI, all they needed to scan your face, and they can just have literally anyone just standing in place, and then superimpose that face over it, and then just use AI to make it sound like you.
yeah,
Because that's how good AI is getting. And it's such, yeah. So it is very strange to me that they just want. It feels like there's like very much a, hey, we just want to take a victory lap here, even though this victory lap is going to actually have a lot of long-term problems for the industry. And the lack of awareness on that is truly weird to me.
oh yeah, because it's weird because AI had. Let's just get it out of the bag. There are helpful versions of AI that has been very helpful. Having someone who lost their voice use an AI program to essentially reconstruct their voice, that's very helpful.
Mm.
Specifically someone who, who has lost their voice due to cancer, throat cancer,
Mm.
or, or something else to the effect with their, like they don't have their strength to say, they don't have their natural voice to say. So here's your way to essentially reconstruct your voice and to do all that. That's like the helpful version of AI. But then there are AI versions that will be like, oh, hey, maybe it would be nice to have, say, Christopher Reeve appear in a Flash movie as a cameo for a person that has been, deceased for a better part of 20 years now, I think. And of course, if you watch the recent Flash movie, there's a whole big scene where all these random characters in the DC past, mind you, mostly Superman characters.
Which is odd, because you would think, hey, there's a vast variety of like
Yeah,
past characters anyway. So you think if they were going to go for it, they should have just at least gone all the way for it. But it's like, oh no, we can only use the images of certain number of dead actors, I guess.
yeah,
We have a quota.
and and this is something that also Nicolas Cage kind of like pointed out too, where he found out that apparently, they used his likeness, not his voice, but for the movie because they wanted to show a little bit of the quote unquote Superman Lives Nicolas Cage, where he was going to be the Tim Burton thing. And compare that to, say, uh, something like maybe 30 years ago when Tales from the Crypt did an episode where they reconstructed Humphrey Bogart to appear on a episode of Tales from the Crypt. They had someone who looked, who sounded like Humphrey Bogart, but they used computer generated imagery to make it appear like he was actually on screen. That that is a smart thing to do because they only did it through like reflections and stuff. So it wasn't like someone
Hmm.
actually on stage, or rather on actual on the actual camera. It was just someone who was like, if someone was passing by the reflection just happened to be Humphrey Bogart, as opposed to them actually trying to reconstruct the person's face and all that stuff, you know. And like I said, and there's also another thing where it was like just what was it, just this no last year when Kenobi came out, and
Hmm.
they found out that James Earl Jones is like, oh, he's returning as Darth Vader, but it was through archived voices, through like archived voices of like
For like all his performances,
in the
like basically
past.
he kind of like allowed them to like just use his voice for whatever. Essentially, at least
Yeah,
that's what it seemed like.
and then they used the like AI program called Respeecher, I think that's what it's called, and then essentially allowed Darth Vader to sound like James Earl Jones again, because again, James Earl Jones, he's like in his 90s now, and the last time
Mhm.
he did Darth Vader was Rogue One, and you could tell even with Rogue One and also The Lion King, his voice wasn't as natural as it was now because he's more
Mhm.
older, more nuanced, and it actually does
Well,
help the
also the fact that like when they originally were doing the voice, they were using scuba gear to make those
character.
sounds too. So it's like they were probably just, using technology to try and try and replicate that sound. But it's like
Yeah,
you can't replicate all that effort,
yeah,
all that human effort, I should say.
and of course, Disney is not again. Disney is just, we're not putting the blame on Disney. I mean, but Disney is one of the people who definitely has tried to cut losses or at least cut corners. Specifically, I forgot what it was called, but there was a Disney Plus movie coming out, maybe already be out. It's some basketball movie, or maybe it has to deal with some basketball movie, but or
Yeah,
it,
I vaguely know what you're talking about. There was a
yeah,
project that they had, like it was a finished product ready to go, and then they shelved it for so they could, I think so they could get a tax write-off.
no, 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 no. There
Or am
was
I thinking of a different thing?
different show. But there was a basketball project or show, a movie that's coming out either recently or just not or within the past or in the past couple of months or so. And one of the shots that they showed was a shot of the crowd, and the shot of the crowd had at least four CGI or AI characters that looked like they
Oh,
were AI characters. They had
I
no
saw that. I saw that
yeah,
clip.
and
Yeah.
people who were striking goes, this is what we're fighting for. This is what people are, are gonna because
Mhm.
people at some point, you know, and I mean, if you're doing a stadium scene, right? Like say the Dark Knight Rises, right? That's a
Mhm.
a perfect example of a stadium scene. When Nolan did it, he did like half of this like he did very practically. He did like filled in one half, filled in another half, all that stuff, instead of it being like all these people at the same time.
Mhm. Yeah, like I was an extra for this movie where they needed a stadium scene. And this is interesting. So they had us go inside the stadium in this sort of like, like giant, I guess, storage area, whatever.
Yeah.
And they had this kind of set built up where there was like two rows of stadium seating and green screen behind us. And for so many hours, they would have increments of us get into those stadium seatings and then just do all these different reactions over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's like that's yeah, clearly that's what they've done. And also another thing about this too is like something that I would think of people have thought of. Like I've seen a little bit of mention of this, but I think it needs to be brought more attention. If a company owns your likeness, then what's to stop them from essentially like suing you if you appear in projects outside of their company?
Oh yeah. Uh
And I'm sure that could be a lot of litigious effort on their part, but it's like they have the money to do it. They'll have even more money to do it because the whole point of this is so they don't have to pay people and they can make just, keep more money for themselves.
Now, while there is a tentative agreement before, like we said, the tentative agreement is like allowing actors to go back to work to promote some of these things. Because let's face it, it's almost Christmas time, and there's a lot of movies that are coming out during Christmas time or during the holiday season. So they need actors to promote some of this stuff for people to actually go out and see this stuff. And while these actors are also promoting this stuff for the most part, they're also fighting again because with the AI, because again,
Mhm.
AI can be a helpful program. It just depends on who's using it.
Exactly.
When you
And it's like,
have
hey, if you like these movies so much, well, guess what? It's people that makes them.
yeah,
Because you can't replace heart and soul that creates these movies.
oh yeah,
Companies want to, but if you do, you're just going to get terrible quality movies.
yes, and
And same for shows and
yeah,
other.
yeah, and speaking of shows, I mean, with this tentative agreement, at least half the people who were essentially waiting for this stuff to get back to normal are quickly going back to work to get a couple of these things already, shot and filmed. Like there's a new romantic comedy coming out at the end of December, I believe, for the Christmas season.
Hmm.
Uh, Literally apparently one of the first films to be filmed right after the SAG after thing because it was, I believe, a Sony Pictures movie, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and we all know how Sony Pictures are.
Hmm.
And, compare that to say everything else, where, because, other properties, other TV shows and whatnot, or other movies are taking their time to actually get back to normal because they have a set release time on, I believe, I was about to say August, on November 28th, on the Tuesday, so in a couple of weeks, at least 75% of TV shows that were on strike or shut down because of work are resuming work to finish up their back half of the season or even start up their season because some of the things that
Hmm.
were filmed, they were already filmed at least part way or finished halfway. And then suddenly it's just like we gotta need another halfway to do everything. Like a good example of this is the TV show Chucky.
Hmm.
They only managed to get 4 episodes done post production wise, shot and filmed post production wise, and then they had at least episode 5 and 6, I believe, already shot, or at least episode 6 partially shot, and then
Hmm.
they had to do with, and then that's when the strike happened and all that stuff. And then they have episodes 7 and 8, which serves as the essentially the because there's only an eight episode show because it's like
Hmm.
you know so it doesn't require a lot of like think a lot of filming time and all that stuff too. Uh,
Hmm.
Even though it takes about like a whole year just to get this one season to essentially get all that stuff, unless you're doing like a sitcom and then it's essentially practically
Well, probably because a lot of like editing and effects has to go
yeah.
in to make the Chucky doll stuff,
Oh
especially
yeah.
those Chucky scenes happen.
Oh yeah, it's like they do a lot of great green screen work, specifically with the doll too.
Hmm.
And also they're bringing back they're bringing Brad Dourif as well onto screen as well as a flesh and blood character, so we don't know about that.
Hmm.
So it's definitely a big production heavy show, specifically when you're doing like visual effects between special effects or just visual effects just to get people out of the shot for Chucky when they're moving the arms around. Because
Hmm.
it's an interesting puppeteer work when you see these guys in green just basically moving the arms and everything around compared to say how Chucky used to move with where it was just basically a puppeteer would be off screen and then there'd be like a 5 second gap where they actually can move it now. But other shows that are returning back to work, the NCIS shows, the Equalizer, Law and Orders, uh, basically anything that was filming in New York City, which is a lot. And then other shows, which leads right into our next story, Daredevil Born Again. So Marvel, and a nice segue. But I will say this though, the the SAG after strike, it may be done striking wise, but the battle has yet to be over because they
Hmm.
are still trying to figure this stuff out with uh, not only AI but also AI consent, essentially.
Yeah.
And yeah, back to the Marvel at hand. Uh, it has not been a good year for Marvel. I mean, it's been a so-so year for Marvel. I mean, it started off kind of poor in terms of in critical reception with Quantum Mania,
Hmm.
which I haven't watched, by the way, yet.
I call it an average Marvel movie.
An average Marvel movie.
Yeah, because like I will say it suffers one of those things where the trailers make you think it's going to actually be a lot more serious in tone. It really isn't, and that's kind of disappointing.
And then during that time of Quantumania, stuff with Jonathan Majors just happened to happen. We won't go into
Yeah, the
much.
timing of that was just like that was terrible timing for that to
Yeah, that was
happen.
terrible timing. Specifically, he was on the pinnacle of his career trajectory, and now there's this stuff we don't want to go. I don't want to
Mhm.
go into because there's a
Yeah,
lot of stuff.
yeah, because it was both Quantumania and Creed 3 were coming out at the same time, and
Time,
then what happened when Jonathan Majors happened.
and then going right into Loki season 2 as well. So
Right, yeah.
so it's like you have this actor who's already kind of like already controversial with stuff that's happening, and then you have this crux of these projects specifically with him coming out as well. So it's just like that as that too, which leads into other stuff where it's just like, okay, I didn't watch Quantumania. Felt like an average film, specifically from the trailers and whatnot. I'll go and see Guardians of the Galaxy 3 because that's more
Mhm.
my jam. Going specifically what happened with James Gunn and having him being fired and then rehired and then having him to finish this trilogy and whatnot. I felt amazed watching Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Oh, that was a fantastic movie.
Then we have Across from the Spider Verse. You got like 2 to 2. Here we go, and then Secret Invasion hits and like, oh, what happened? Well, we got like 2 out of 2, and then it's like the first episode of Secret Invasion was good. Then it kind of like fell right after the second episode. And
And you can tell they clearly had to be rushing it because a lot of those effects for like that big battle scene in the finale just do not look that good.
oh yeah, yeah.
So it's
And
like, yeah.
yeah. Plus the AI portion of it where we found out that the
Oh
opening
yeah, the
credits,
opening.
yeah, the opening credits, again, this is what we were talking about before, where D- Disney's again not the only company that does this. Again, Warner Brothers when they released the Flash over the summer, everyone was talking about the whole Superman stuff with the AI stuff and
Mhm.
excuse me.
Yeah, that one is one of those things like the reason that one was much bigger is because it was much more in your face,
Yeah,
pun intended.
but according to the show people, they wanted an AI title sequence because they wanted the unnatural effect of what could be like the scrolls being like already here and they wanted that paranoia feeling and whatnot. And I mean, you could do
Okay,
that, but
sure, but you can still hire people to actually do that
yeah,
too. Like a great example of this, look up the YouTube channel Corridor Crew, and then also Corridor Digital, because they kind of two videos have similar things. One of them behind the scenes. Basically, they purposely made a video that is like unsatisfying renders.
yeah,
And some of it is very like, unsatisfying.
yeah. You
So it's
got
like
so
yeah, if you like, you can have people make these effects that you're talking about that you want. It's not impossible. Like it's not like something that only AI can do. Because there's the thing, AI learns from humans.
yes.
So yes,
That's
people, for the love of God, hire
that's why
humans.
that's why it's called an artificial intelligence because it gets smarter artificially. Maybe. I don't know.
I feel like I know we have other topics, but I feel like the crux of this is still going to be AI sucks,
Yes.
regardless.
Uh, but also, what's one called? I just read that the Marvel people, not only the Marvel people, but there's Disney people who were so burnt out with visual effects because around this time too they also fired one of the visual effects supervisors or something like that because I'm trying to
Yeah,
remember.
they yeah, like many places, they run visual effects like into the ground with how
Yeah,
much demand and how little time they actually give them. And again, I know okay, yeah, quick side tangent, but like people like talking about like, the Marvels having a poor box office opening. Like, can we just address the fact that maybe we need to take a break from superhero movies for a while because I think we're all kind of getting superhero
yeah,
fatigued out here, especially think about the people who are having to work on Marvel's movies under these crazy deadlines.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's a very good reason that the visual effects people are like making their own unions now. And
Like even
finally,
I love superhero stuff, and even I'm superhero. I was like I told myself is like after Across the Spider Verse, I'm like, yeah, that's it for superhero stuff this year, unless I decide to go see Aquaman 2, which is possible because I want to see how much of a train wreck that movie is.
yeah,
Because
honestly, that at this point, that would probably be the only reason I would watch it, especially because it's like there's that train wreck, but it's like
the end,
look at something that's actually good that's out that's superhero. The only thing I can really think of is Invincible because they took the time with it.
yeah,
Because so far it's starting off real good. It's starting off strong.
uh, but but yeah, we have Secret Invasion, and then we have a couple of months off of just Marvel stuff, and then great, and then just last month they go straight into Loki season 2, leading into the Marvels. And I will say this though, Loki season 2, I liked it actually. Out of the,
Yeah, I've heard it's like better than the first season.
it is really good from the first season, really. Like it starts off slow, like any other show, but it really does pick up by the end of everything, and you just see everything just be like, oh, it is really, really good. And as someone who is running a show about Norse mythology, Hayden, shout out to him and his scripts created by Hayden Loomis. Uh,
Well, hopefully, what Brian's teasing, maybe one day you'll see if there is a studio that's actually interested.
A24, come on, please be watching.
Honestly, A24, you make the good stuff.
Yes, Blumhouse,
So,
come on. Blumhouse, we get that Universal deal.
hmm.
And also, Blumhouse, also possibly Showtime or possibly Peacock.
Hmm.
Imagine friggin' that's imagine one of your shows on either Peacock or Showtime. Guess people are actually watching that stuff anyway.
I mean, hey, Paramount. I mean, is Paramount Plus like part of Universal?
No, no, no. Paramount Plus is actually just its own like.
Oh, it's just its own thing. Okay, so it's not.
Yeah, it's part of
Well,
Paramount
well,
Pictures.
because you can get like a Paramount Plus Showtime combination subscription.
Yeah,
So that's why I was thinking they must have been like connected or
Paramount
something.
Showtime is literally still tied with Paramount Plus, but there are other shows that are on Showtime that are other other stuff. But yeah, tangent side away. Uh,
No, I'm the one doing the tangents. This is clearly a
yeah,
lot has changed since we've been gone.
hey, it's been 84 years, folks.
I got a lot of tangents built up in here.
Yes, it's been months. Uh, but yeah, speaking of months and years and whatnot, back to Marvel. Basically, they've had a rough year, and then the strikes happened, and then they had to really switch out with their stuff again. So basically, leading into the next thing, where it's just like Marvel going into 2024 is only releasing one movie and I believe 3 shows or 4 shows. Well, according to this, we have What If Season 2, Echo, X-Men 97, which isn't an MCU show, but it's connected to the X-Men cartoon thing. Deadpool 3, which is going to be the MCU movie of the year. The Agatha show, and Ironheart. So we have, oh, and Daredevil Born Again. So there's like maybe 5 shows or so yet to be released. And at least 2 of those shows already have to be finished because of the writer's strike and the SAG after strike.
Yeah,
And one
I
of the
honestly
shows,
doubt how much they're going to be able to really do under this timeline of trying to get these shows
yeah,
out in 2024, considering with the strike. So it's like, best of luck. They don't like, work people into the ground.
yes. So as of right now, at least from what I'm seeing, What If Season 2, that was already filmed, and because again, What If season two is an animated show, so animators take their time and effort and
Mhm.
stuff like that too. And so they probably it's like The Simpsons. Like The Simpsons probably have their stuff at least a year or two in advance, just like
Mhm.
already like locked, already recorded.
Yeah, like some of the first things like they probably did before the strikes was just like already get all that voice recording down.
Yeah. So that way you have stuff already kind of like already done for like, at
Mhm.
least several months. And then by the time the strike is actually over, they could just return to their work and finish whatever season it is.
Mhm.
Uh, because I mean, animation, it takes time, but when you're in a voice studio, that could be at least maybe a couple of days, or at
Mhm.
least maybe a day, depending on how fast you're able to work and do your stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, Echo, which is coming out in early January, they're doing an interesting thing too, where they're actually releasing this both on Hulu and also Disney Plus, because sooner than later, they're gonna be merging both Hulu and Disney Plus into one package. So yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
expensive bundle.
yeah. And of course, we don't know how much the ad-free thing is going to be. So it's like any person who has Disney Plus already, does that already mean we have it? Hulu is like it may be just like the same thing with Showtime and Paramount Plus, where it's just like it just becomes its own entity within the thing. So if you want to have Showtime, you pay like an extra $3 or whatever it is.
Mhm.
But X-Men 97, that was already I think filmed the same thing like What If season 2.
Mhm.
Uh Followed by Deadpool 3. Brian Reynolds has already tweeted about it. He's already going back into his red big condom bodysuit, as he pointed out. Yes. Yes. So and everything else between Agatha, Ironheart. I mean, Ironheart was already filmed like at least a year ago, or early until early this year. So they already have
Mhm.
Ironheart kind of like done filming wise. I think they just need to get it done visually,
Right, yeah.
because visually it'd probably be a tough show to actually get done, because Ironheart being an Iron Man like you know uh character,
Mhm.
a lot of visual effects.
Oh yeah.
And the same thing with Agatha too, where it's just like Agatha, witch character,
All the magic stuff, and it's gonna
all
be
the
a lot of
magic.
effects work there too.
Yeah. So which leads to something like Echo and Daredevil Born Again being more street level, more, hey, this is more practical, more stunt related work. So, and
Yeah, and like interesting too is like because Daredevil Born Again, that's the one that's gonna have like the most episodes of any one season of any of the Disney Plus superhero shows too. So I feel like what they might end up doing with that one too is like split that in half. Because originally Loki was actually supposed to be a one season show,
yeah,
but then they split it in half. So I feel like they might do the same with that. It's considering the timeline of trying
yeah.
to.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they split it in half, or they manage to actually release all 18 episodes or whatever it is out in the amount of time that they have.
Mhm.
But speaking of, and of course, with Daredevil Born Again, that's also one of the shows being tentative released into the atmosphere of, oh, hey, we're kind of already in the process of having things refilmed and whatnot. But during both strikes, the creative team behind Daredevil Born Again was actually got essentially shuffled back.
Mhm.
They apparently Kevin
Feige.
Feige,
Because that sounded really bad the way you were saying it.
yeah, I know. Hey, this is why we live stream, folks. You want the actual errors and whatnot, but Kevin Feige,
This is what AI cannot replicate.
yes, actual human error. But the man in the baseball cap, he was just like he must have been at his mansion somewhere and looked at the dailies and whatnot and wasn't exactly happy with the product that they were doing. So, from the sound of things, the people behind a recent Loki season two, I think I forgot their names, but it's like I think Jason Morehouse or Aaron Morehouse or something like that. But the people behind the recent the season of Loki, uh, they're going to be doing the essentially they're going to be doing the not only the writing for Daredevil Born Again, but also maybe some of the direction too,
Hmm.
because they have essentially the Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. There we go. Those are the two that are going to be doing the Daredevil Born Again. I mean, they were already doing Daredevil Born Again, but as a director. But from the sound of things, they're also going to be doing the writing majority too. So,
Interesting.
and according to them, they are just engrossing anything that is data related, including the recent movies, or sorry, the recent TV shows, TV series, the movies, Frank Miller stuff. So it's like there's a lot of stuff that has been going around because of Marvel, because of reshuffling. And I think what you also said before is that the it's just that superhero fatigue of just superhero movies in general.
Hmm.
And I think that's another reason why the movies in general was just lacking because there was just like this year alone there was four superhero movies. I'm sorry, five superhero movies, and four of them were Marvel movies.
Oh
And
wait, wasn't maybe I'm misremembering, but I was no Black Adam was last year, wasn't it?
yeah, Black Adam was last year.
Okay. Yeah,
And
it just
out of
goes to
this,
show there's so many superhero movies that you can't even tell when some of them come out.
and out of this year, there's only two DC movies that are coming out. And there was more superhero shows compared to say movies this year. So yeah, definitely a quality versus quantity versus consumption thing happening with release schedules.
Mhm.
I think that's at this point where people are just tired of going to see a superhero movie because it's the same thing. You know, it's like the Marvels. You know, as much as I love Brie Larson and everyone else who did the movie just didn't look appealing because I have no idea who the villain is. Oh, this says the villain is a Kree. I'm like, okay, the Krees are the bad guys again. It's like they're gonna be the bad guys again, specifically, after the first movie. They're still the bad guys, even if you watch
Like Krees have always been the bad guys.
yeah, the Krees have always been the bad guys. But I'm pretty sure, if you could have not had any villain at all in this movie and just had it just be like almost like a road trip movie. Just make a like almost a out of genre context thing for the Marvels movie, Marvel movie, where it's just like have a buddy cop movie where it's just like you have the more serious type of person, Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers teaming up with a more straight laced type of person with Monica Rambeau. I think it was a no,
Yeah,
it's Monica.
Monica Rambeau.
And then you have the more energetic person, Kamala Khan, who is just like that like middle bridge between the two, and then you have them just like having a nice little thing that has no effects on the thing. Just have it be a standalone movie while it just being a standalone movie. I think that's the problem with some of these Marvel movies now is like they have to be so
Hmm.
connected to everything else.
Yeah. It's like something can't exist on its own in a vacuum.
Yeah, and it's just like, and that's why Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 works so well, is because it exists by itself. Yes,
Hmm.
it still follows Thor, Ragnarok, and whatnot,
Yeah,
but
like it follows the events of of Infinity War and Endgame.
yeah, but it doesn't really, it doesn't say, oh, hey, these characters are coming back and all that stuff. It's
Hmm.
its own element. And And speaking of elements and whatnot, uh, the crazy element that is called Looney Tunes was back in the news. That was an interesting segue. um, uh,
I mean, hey, we can't get them all.
we can't get them all, but
Speaking of crazy, Looney
there we
Tunes.
go. Speaking of crazy elements, Looney Tunes. So Looney Tunes actually got back in the news recently, just a couple of days ago, because the Warner Brothers decided, or Warner Brothers Animation, or one of the two, uh, written off a movie called Coyote v. Acme, or Coyote versus Acme. I think that's what it's called. One of
Mhm.
those two. And the whole punchline to this whole movie is that Wile E. Coyote gets so fed up with getting these Acme products not working that he sues the company, and he gets a lawyer that was supposedly essentially a Saul Goodman type of lawyer in Looney Tunes, played by Will Forte. And in doing so, the Acme Corporation hires John Cedar as their lawyer, not as John Cedar, but John Cedar, the lawyer type. So we can have a straight man, John Cedar, against a wacky Will Forte character that is basically emulating Saul Goodman and all the good qualities of Saul Goodman in a fucking Looney Tunes movie, and they took it
Mhm.
away from us.
Yeah, it's insane. Honestly, just on a side note, I feel like they already had a great template for a I don't for like a Foghorn Leghorn to be that Saul Goodman type of lawyer because he's such
I
a
say,
talker that he could honestly be a perfect stand-in for like a Saul Goodman-esque lawyer.
I say.
Now I say, we all have been through those phases of our life, chasing the road runners.
No, but I'm actually just pitching him as the chicken from Futurama now. I think that's basically what I'm seeing now is that chicken from Futurama, that lawyer chicken thing. That's
Mhm.
basically almost like essentially the Foghorn Leghorn thing. But there was a silver lining though. The fan reaction to this movie being shelved essentially into the Walt Disney Vault or wherever it is, and this was a full movie that was essentially released, that was done. The music was done, the visual effects were done, because there are people who are showing like clips of everything kind of like already online. There was a leak, or rather a photo of what the Roadrunner looked like. It looked like it was glorious 2D animation. It was glorious. And because of fan reaction and also just reaction itself, it is possible that this movie is being shelved around on other streaming services. Now, there's a good and bad news about that. One good news is that some streaming site like say Amazon Prime or Netflix, they get the film, they stream it to the thing, they buy X amount of money just to do that thing. And if they really wanted to, they actually could, because these companies actually could actually do limited distribution. You could actually see this movie limited distribution already in theaters. The bad news is, and it goes right back to the strike, revenue. If this gets released on streaming, revenue, how much are these actors going to get from this thing? Because a lot of these actors who were doing on strike were posting their revenue thing and stuff like that too. And one of the goals in this new contract thing was better streaming revenue as well. Because that was one of the goals, I think,
Yeah. Well,
was
not just, yeah,
revenue.
like better streaming, like, sorry, tongue tied. Better residuals for streaming, as well as also getting the numbers for how many
Yeah,
people are actually watching. Because Netflix is already doing that in other countries, just not here in America.
yeah. And so yeah, it's going to be uh, an interesting case, like the actual case in the movie. But
Well,
uh,
also there's another facet of that case too, because if they're like, if Warner Brothers allows another streaming service to, like, stream that, then does that mean that company then also shares the rights to, say, like those Looney Tunes characters that appear in the movie, like
yeah,
say Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner?
it's interesting because Netflix actually are going to be streaming the DCEU movie in December, like
Hmm.
starting in December from like the Man of Steel all the way to, I believe, before Black Adam. So I believe the Suicide Squad. So, or at least somewhere between the Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey. But at the same time, Amazon Prime is also doing the same thing. Whereas it's like if you go on Amazon Prime right now, or Tubi for that matter, you could probably find Birds of Prey or a couple of DCEU movies. They should have picked a better name.
Hmm. For real.
DCEU DCEU movies online to watch on these streaming services for just rather than going on HBO Max. I'm sorry, Max to watch it on Max and then going to that thing. So yeah, it does bring up an interesting question: is that would Netflix own these rights to these Looney Tunes characters for the time being? Probably not, but they were probably able to own the rights to those characters in the film. Granted, they are part of the actual Looney Tunes, the Looney Tunes first, but at the same time, it's like it's something that I kind of wish we had another we had the third co-host who knows about the business side again.
Hmm.
Aaron, why'd you have to leave? Darren, you could have been great in this little moment now.
Damn it, Darren! How dare you get work?
Yes. Uh, and but yeah, it definitely is going to be interesting thing to watch because it's like, does other movies that were shelved completely, Batgirl notwithstanding, because Batgirl I think still need to be filmed, not filmed, like finished, like actually be finished, like post production thing stuff wise. Scoob, Holiday Haunt was something I think was finished, but they decided to shelve it because there was a tax write off. Well, if these movies that are deemed tax write offs get actually watched and actually put on streaming services and whatnot, will there be like a resurgence of these of companies actually going, oh wait a minute, hang on, there is actually a format to, or rather a formula for streaming versus people going to movies and whatnot. Whereas it's like there's a lot more people who, the movie experience should be in a movie theater, but sometimes it's best to actually just be like, oh, hey, this movie's on Peacock. Well, actually being released on, in theaters. I may as well go
Yeah,
watch
it's yeah, it's one of those things where it's like if the hang up is it's not going to be released in theaters, then it's like, well, do you want to see it at all out? And people who put their work into making this into this, piece of media,
Yeah,
like, should it get to be seen anywhere at all or just never again?
yeah. Hard work pays off.
Hmm.
And speaking of hard work, everyone's favorite time of the year is coming up, award season, but not that award season because we still have one, two, three, four, at least 4 months until Oscars season. But that doesn't mean there isn't an Oscar caliber of gaming awards. And in that segue, we talk about our last story of today. The gaming awards are coming out this year. Well, I mean, it's almost time for the gaming awards. There we go. It's a little hard to get a little tongue tied. And I was surprised to see what is considered to be game of the year already out. So the game awards, I believe, are coming out in like somewhere in December. I think maybe December, somewhere along that time. Uh,
Probably.
December 7th. Okay, so in another like a few more weeks. I know I'm starting. It's like we've been
And
talking.
it's like what a perfect time too, December 7th, because then it's like if these awards go terrible, then it's like you could just play the December 7th, a day that will live in infamy.
I mean, it's interesting because one of the games that has gotten the best or most awards is Alan Wake 2, which literally just released about 3 weeks ago. And the other another game that just released, like I want to say a few months ago, was Baldur's Gate 3.
Mhm.
And they both had the same amount of nominations, which I believe is about maybe eight or so. Yeah, eight nominations each.
Okay.
Marvel Spider-Man 2 received 7 nominations. Legends of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom received 5, alongside Super Mario Wonder, and everyone's favorite Game of the Year candidate, Starfield, only received 1. But always messing up somehow. but I won't go into all the categories. Like I'll go into, I would say probably, yeah, probably the top three ones. I would say.
Mhm.
So obviously, game of the year is the like game of the year. So we have Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4 remake, the Super Mario Brothers Wonder. What am I saying? Why am I saying the Super Mario Brothers? It's Super Mario Brothers Wonder and The Legends of Zelda is Tears of the Kingdom. Out of all the six things that they just mentioned, I only played one of them, which was Resident Evil 4. I didn't get a chance to buy Spider-Man 2, but I've seen gameplay of it and I've seen the story and it looks amazing.
Oh God, yeah. Like as soon as like they announced that they were doing the like symbiote and Venom storyline for this game, I'm like, oh, Yuri Lowenthal is going to kill it.
Yeah. Game of the year, but I was just surprised to see Alan Wake 2 on that Game of the Year thing, where it's just like, oh wow, Alan Wake 2 is a game that just came out and it was immediately Game of the Year. Uh, like the same thing. It's like now it's interesting because most of these is like it's like oh best narratives or basically best outstanding storytelling in a narrative development in the game. We have Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, Final Fa- excuse me, Final Fantasy 16, and Marvel Spider-Man 2. I'm like, out of all those games, I didn't play Phantom Liberty, but the Cyberpunk 2020, the 2077 thing, it definitely got a great overhaul.
Mm.
Now, here's something that I noticed actually quite interesting, which was best performance. So we have Ben Starr for Final Fantasy 16, Cameron Monaghan for Jedi Survivor, Idris Elba for 2077 Phantom Liberty, Melanie Libard for Alan Wake 2, Neil Newborn or Newborn, I think, for Baldur's Gate 3, and Yuri Lowenthal for Marvel Spider-Man 2. Out of
Yeah, so definitely some good performances there. Um, and I think what you're going to ask me is like, out of all those, which one do I think probably should win? And to be honest,
Yuri,
Yuri, it has to be Yuri.
like I've already seen clips and story, gameplay of Yuri in Spider-Man 2. I'm like, yeah, this guy really is
He is Spider-Man,
like
like
he's really giving
straight
it
up.
all. Like he's really giving it his all for this year, or rather this game. Uh,
I mean, yeah, he is one of the best voice actors out there. Like, for instance, say what you want about the character of Sasuke Uchiha, he is a fantastic voice actor for that character.
but yeah, it's like it's interesting because as I'm going through some of these categories, it's like, it's like, oh, best indie game or best debut indie game or best ongoing game. It's like best mobile game. Now, community support is actually interesting because they list Cyberpunk 2077 as Phantom Liberty, even though it should just be literally just be 2077 overall, because that is essentially, hey, we basically gave you a whole new game 3 years later. We're sorry.
Yeah.
Because Phantom Liberty, I mean, not Phantom Liberty, Cyberpunk 2077, whew, when it was first released, it was like really hard to control and whatnot.
Yeah, it was rough.
It was rough, yeah. Um, so we got, oh, interesting how they have two categories for action games. They have best action game and they also have best action/adventure game. And I'm guessing action game is like action game that's focused on primarily on combat, while action adventure games combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving.
That
So
feels
that,
so like like
that's
just call it best fighter game then at that point. Because
well, best fighting
if you're saying best combat game, because most of the games that are only going to have combat are just going to be fighting games. Because most video games nowadays that have fighting generally are also going to have the traversal, the platforming, all that, and the
Yeah,
puzzle solving stuff. So it's
which
like,
which makes no sense, but it's uh, like here's the thing for best action game is like Armored Core 2, I mean Armored Core 6, Dead Island 2, Ghost Runner 2, Hi-Fi Rush, and Remnant 2. These are all the action games, but action adventure games. This is for best action adventure games. Alan Wake 2, Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4, Jedi Survivor, Tears of the Kingdom. Like that's basically the same thing. This just basically saying, oh hey, this stuff has like stuff that's like adventure stuff in this game, like traversal and puzzle solving and whatnot. This is just more primarily on like combat stuff, even though I'm pretty sure in Dead Island 2, there is probably puzzle solving and traversal stuff.
oh yeah, definitely.
But I was wondering,
It almost feels like they were like, okay, hey, here's all the ones that everyone immediately knows about. So we're gonna put it all in one category, kind of make it very stacked. And the other one, here's the rest.
yes, but and I think after like most of the stuff, I'm looking at the categories. It's like it's funny because I had to look to see where Starfield was, and lo and behold, it goes into a category that Bethesda knows so much about, but has no inkling on how to run it, an RPG.
Oh, the
Yes,
irony.
yes. Best RPG goes to the nominees go to Baldur's Gate 3, Final Fantasy 16, Lies of P, Caesar Stars, and Starfield. The irony is just there because, like, nothing against Starfield or Bethesda, but
Bethesda is known for like very janky RPG games. Like
yeah,
it's just a common fact at this point, and like it is what it is. But like also, I think Starfield's probably gonna end up winning more awards simply because of the fact that there was such a visceral outrage over the idea of pronouns in a game where
ah,
you
yes,
select your gender.
ah, yes, pronouns. Hang on, things I can actually do on screen here. Can I actually? No, I gotta go to security. Oh wait, I gotta do it on my actual thing.
Can I like share a screen or something?
There, see,
Oh,
pronouns.
that.
Boom, he, him. Boom, there. Oh
So
no.
easy.
Oh no, that just means oh no, I'm a guy. Oh no. Uh, but yeah, it's hilarious to know there's like out of all these categories. Oh, and probably the best out of all these categories, Starfield was the one that was just related for best RPG, even though I've heard that there is RPG system is like janky at best. So,
Again, Bethesda.
but here comes my favorite though. Here comes my favorite thing: best adaptation, because I was surprised to see one thing that I thought would be under not even considered to be best adaptation: Castlevania Nocturnal, Gran Turismo, The Last of Us, the Super Mario's Brother movie, and Twisted Metal, which was I was surprised to see Twisted Metal on there because it was like everyone was like, people was
Wait,
like,
okay, wait. Oh right, Twisted Metal did get a show. Oh my
yes, it was on
god.
Peacock with Anthony Mackie and Stephanie Dietrich, and Samoa Joe as Sweet Tooth, with Will Arnett being the Sweet Tooth voice.
Huh.
It is amazing to watch.
Interesting.
It has that comedy. It's made by the same guy. I think people who did both Deadpool and also I think John Wick 2, or at least it has that same creative team, meaning like the people
Hmm.
who were like producers for it.
Right, yeah. Like people who worked on that also worked on
Yeah,
this. Yeah. Okay.
worked on that stuff.
Interesting.
And it's amazing. It's an amazing show to watch. Like if
Hmm.
you, and it's only like a half an hour too. So it's just like
Hmm.
between those five products, between Castlevania and Nocturnal, which I hope could win, but between this, like I don't want you, Hayden, I don't want you to go into a tangent, but
No, I know it's gonna be Last of Us.
yes, I want it to be either The Last of Us or the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Well, it won't be the first time the video games award. Just look for any excuse to give Neil Druckmann a little handy, as it were.
I'm just so glad we're live streaming this, so I don't have to worry about your hatred for Neil Druckmann. I mean, Druckmann, your hatred for Neil. But
Well, I
yeah,
will say it's a real bit of irony when you think about it. When after the show finished and there was an interview that came out after the episode finished airing, he says like, "Oh yeah, the Fireflies totally were going to make a cure," and it's like, "Oh, cool. So you totally support the side that was going to take away a woman's choice? Not even a woman, a girl's choice. Good to know. How topical."
yeah. So, but if anything, the way they become best adaptation, it'll probably be a toss up between The Last of Us or the Super Mario Brothers movie, which is so amazing to watch considering the amount of press it got because of Chris Pratt's Mario. And then when you watch it, it's like actually not that half bad. You know, he sounds like a kind of like a guy trying to sound like a New Yorker, making fun of a New Yorker, but he's actually not that half bad.
Hmm.
Garfield, another story, but that's for another time.
Wait,
As
wait, Garfield?
yes, he's voicing Garfield.
Honestly, I can kind of see him as Garfield, to be honest.
Well, I have the trailer for you then. Until next time, and that's actually the end of the episode. I'm actually kind of happy I don't have to do all these recordings now because Zoom, when you're recording for Zoom, it takes a while to process. But with live streaming capabilities, this could be just be easy.
Mhm.
I hope, but I hope you all enjoyed our kind of like rambling mess and whatnot. It's been a while. You know, it's been a half of a year already.
Yeah, if it isn't obvious by now, we do not script this really.
Yes. I mean, we script the talking points, but we never script what we actually talk about.
Exactly. It's like, hey, here's the headline. That's it. That's all. That's all we write.
Yes, no, actually, yes. It's like it's literally we take the headline, we read about what's we already know what's happening in the news or not. Then it's just like, hey, here's our actual thoughts on this stuff that aren't like actually unfiltered actual thoughts and that aren't actually stuff that are just like whatever. Anyway, take care, buddy. Please be safe and Hayden, any final thoughts?
I got nothing.